As the movie opens, we see Jin-ho in a wheelchair in front of the professor. The professor hypnotizes him and puts him back into his old memories, where he lived with his friends. Then, another guy named Do-hyun comes out from the elevator. He is the college's best student. He is making a documentary and has an interest in hypnotherapy. Then we see Do-hyun taking an English test, watched over by a female professor, Miss Yo Kyung-hee. The test is related to a Korean song that they need to translate. Ms. Kyung-hee told the students not only to translate the lyrics, but also to write down their meaning. Do-hyun completes his test, submits it to the professor first among the students, and leaves the examination room. Now we see Chen and Young, two TV stars, in the scene. Suddenly Do-hyun comes up to them, and it is revealed that Chen, Young, Hyun, and Byung were childhood friends. Suddenly, Young gets a headache while they are chatting. Do-hyun asks her if she is ill. Young says she is fine and goes away. Then Chen and Do-hyun think about the party that's going to take place that night, and discuss calling Young and Byung to the party too. When they are both talking, a girl comes to Do-hyun and asks him to meet with Professor Kyung. Do-hyun promptly goes to the professor's room. Ms. Kyung meets Do-hyun with the boy named Jin-ho, whom we saw earlier getting hypnotic treatment from Professor Choi. Jin-ho is new to this school. After losing his mom and dad in a car accident, Jin-ho has become depressed. Therefore, he is taking this treatment. Now Ms. Kyung asks Do-hyun to stay with Jin-ho to help him. Do-hyun agrees to that, since he's eager to learn more about the hypnotic process. Then Jin-ho asks Do-hyun about his documentary subject. Do-hyun tells him that he is making a documentary for his psychology task, and through hypnotism, he seeks to remove old memories from the human minds, for they were not guilty in their childhood, but now they are. Then Do-hyun is eager to come with Jin-ho to the therapy, which will be helpful in making the documentary. In the next scene, we see Professor Choi, who is giving a lecture to his psychology class about hypnosis. Here, Choi tells everyone that Korean children have been developing excessive activity since 2000, and hypnotherapy can prevent it. Japan and America also use hypnotherapy on their prisoners or people for their treatment. Later, he suggests that Do-hyun try hypnosis. When Do-hyun goes into the hypnosis process, he sees some strange visuals. Firstly, he sees a girl in an abandoned building whose face is covered with a clothing bag. Then Do-hyun sees a man there, and immediately feels scared of him and wakes up from his hypnotic state. He is feeling very anxious and confused. Then the professor tells him ominously that all lost memories will return with time. Later, Chan and Byung go to a restaurant, and Do-hyun comes along with Jin-ho. He introduces Jin-ho, as he is helping him with the psychological assignment. When they re-talking happily, Young arrives. Byung's mood is off when he sees Young there. After that, they start having an argument about their relationship. Here we get to know that they are actually a couple. Suddenly, Jin-ho's phone starts ringing, and Chen tries to calm the tension, but Byung leaves them angrily. Do-hyun follows him and tries to chat with him by changing the topic, and asking him why he is leaving boxing and what he will do after that. Byung explains to him that he does not like to make decisions according to the plan. At that time, on the road, a boy holding a pen is making a tick-tick from the pen's voice, and Byung gets a strange headache from the car's horns. Then, when Byung gets tired of the tick-tick of the pen, he stops the boy, but they start to fight. Do-hyun stops him, but Byung seems somewhat off about it. Next, we see Jin-ho standing watching them slightly, and he is scared too. Afterward, Byung is seen in a gym where he practices boxing. He sees a strange vision that he and a girl are kissing, but suddenly the girl spits blood from her mouth. Then he wakes up from his dream and sees that the same girl is in front of him, asking him if he saw her in his dreams. In the next scene, Do-hyun goes to the library and brings back a hypnosis book for reading, where he meets with a girl named Seo Hyun-young who has depression, and she takes medications for it. Seeing her taking medicine, Hyun mentions to her about Professor Choi and suggests that hypnotherapy might be helpful for her. She agrees. Then, during the session, she also sees a vision of a girl whose face is covered with sake and some horrific childhood flashbacks. 4 children saw the girl hanged with rope. Then she comes out from her hypnotic state, and Professor Choi tells her that she might have slept, which means that she apparently agreed to Do-hyun and came here to the professor for hypnosis, even though she was not conscious of that at the time. Next, Chen, Do-hyun, and Jin-ho sit together, and Do-hyun tells them about his hypnosis book. Through using this book, anyone can perform hypnosis easily, but it isn't easy to get the subjects back, and sometimes people can stay in hypnotic states forever. Hearing that, Chen refuses to try hypnosis. After that, Jin-ho determinedly tells Do-hyun to do hypnosis on him following the guidelines in the book. It shows Jin-ho has nerves to do so, or maybe he wants to get rid of something, as he thinks he will be okay with hypnosis. So Do-hyun starts hypnosis on Jin-ho through the instructions written in the book. Next, we see Young dancing, when a pin hurts her foot and suddenly the lights go off and she sees a strange man who is hanging with rope. She gets terrified as the man approaches her. Then she sees that a man is pressing on her neck, but in the next moment, no one is there, which means it was all just an illusion. The scene shifts to Do-hyun, who hypnotizes Jin-ho using the book, per his earlier request, and wants to show him his old memory. Jin-ho observes broad daylight, but he recognizes the memory and is terrified of seeing someone there. When things become more tense, Jin-ho comes out of hypnosis. Then we see Hyun's phone ringing with a call from Young. However, he doesn't pick up. The next day, Do-hyun calls Young repeatedly, but she is not answering her phone. Suddenly, Young's body falls in front of Do-hyun, and her phone is ringing in her pocket. It seems as though she has attempted. Due to all these happenings, Do-hyun is badly scared. Chen and Do-hyun are at Young's funeral, and they discuss how Young does not know about the illusion thing, so she was not picking up the phone. The inspector tells them that Young committed suicide, and she wrote famous Korean song lyrics on a whose meanings are unknown. Then we see Byung, who is doing boxing practice in the gym. He sees Young there, and asks her what she is doing. At the same time, Byung's phone rings, and he picks up the phone to Do-hyun, who tells him about Young's passing. Byung tells him that Young is before him, so Do-hyun warns him that she is not Young and tries to force him to leave the place, worried that his friend might be in danger. Byung, though, is not convinced, and Do-hyun's advice falls on deaf ears. He approaches the girl who seems like Young to him. Slowly he goes near Young, but is deeply disturbed when he sees Young has taken out her eyeballs, and asked him to do the same. Byung gets scared, and then realizes that it was all just a hallucination. After that, both of them are seen standing on a road, and discussing how she called him and told him on the phone that after her therapy, she was having strange visions. And they didn't do a joke in her childhood, as Seung-min came back to take her revenge. But they don't remember anything about the girl named Seung-min. Now again, Byung falls into a state of hypnosis through the horns of cars, and he sees a man caught by the police and realizes they are taking him somewhere. Suddenly he sees a flicker of that girl, and wakes up from his hypnotic state. The next day, Jin-ho is scared of Young's sudden passing, and goes to college alone and passes through the side where Young. He also listens to the voice of Young, who is calling his name. Meanwhile, he realizes that Young has lost her life already. Then Jin-ho goes to the classroom for a test, where he does strange actions, such as putting his finger into his ear and scratching too much. He also repeatedly breaks his pencil's nib again and again, and sharpens his pencil with a blade, but in reality he is actually hurting his fingers. His teacher intervenes, concerned for his welfare. Then we see Do-hyun learning about the building he saw while in a hypnotic state. It turns out that it is a church hospital. Chen also saw Min in his dream, and he was scared too. The next day, Chen, Do-hyun, and Byung discuss their childhood trauma. Then Byung and Do-hyun go to Professor Choi and recognize that someone has hypnotized them. And this was the reason they had all four spent their childhood, but none of them remember anything about it. The professor reveals that it is not a hallucination, but hypnotism. Due to certain things seen, or doing some actions, or listening to trigger sounds, the hypnotic state gets activated in them, regardless of their mental state. And they leave the professor's office. While outside, Byung tells Do-hyun that he saw a girl's vision. And then they go to an old hospital building. Do-hyun remembers the place, as he has seen it before, but a guard finds them and asks them to back off. Do-hyun explains to the guard that they want to know about a girl named Seung-min, and the guard reveals that she passed away over 10 years ago. Do-hyun and Byung are both shocked to hear that. Moreover, the security guard reveals that the facility had previously been used to treat children. The director used to discipline the mischievous children. He locked them up in the basement, and due to this, Seung-min lost her life, and the police accused the director of being responsible for it. However, the director attempted. Therefore, this hospital was closed. The guard also mentions to them about a child who was a little insane, so when the institution was closed down, he was admitted to the National Psychiatric Hospital. Next, we see Chen is in the classroom, and he sees that girl there, causing him to fall into a state of hypnosis since she is one of the triggers. While hypnotized, he commits by putting his face into a big pot of boiling water. Back with the others, Do-hyun tells Byung to go to the police and ask about the mentally disabled boy. Then Do-hyun goes to Professor Choi to inform him that the girl he keeps seeing in his dream lost her life 10 years ago. Choi says that if he had known about the person who hypnotized him, then he would again hypnotize Do-hyun, and perhaps he would find out the complete truth. He agrees, and Professor Choi hypnotizes him again, where he finally remembers that in childhood, he and his four friends together bullied Seung-min. They covered her face with the sake bag, hung her in a drum, put some pieces of glass down for her as food, and told her not to leave the drum until they asked her to. Unfortunately, none of them called Min to come out, and she starved in there. Later, they blamed the director for this murder, and it means the director had no part in the incident. Then Do-hyun emerges from the hypnotized state, and suddenly sees Seung-min there. He gets frightened and runs, going straight to the police station to tell the police all about Professor Choi and his hypnotizing method. He also mentions to the police that the song Young wrote on a notepad was written by a Korean who wrote it before, and that person's wife is a professor in their college, and her name is Miss Kyon. But the police do not believe him due to lack of evidence, and think it's some sort of gibberish. There was a little problem with her daughter's face. Now Do-hyun understands it all and realizes that Miss Kyon is the wife of the director and Seung-min was the daughter of Miss Kyon and the director. Jin-ho was also included with them, and he was also their childhood friend and became heavily mentally affected due to this incident. Do-hyun immediately calls Byung and asks him to meet him in college. Byung gets onto the bus straight away. Right after that, the bus honks its horn and he becomes hypnotized. In his sudden hypnotic state, he sees Seung-min, who gives him a piece of glass and forces him to eat it. Byung gulps down the glass obediently and bleeds out on the spot. When the story ends, Do Hyun tells Miss Kyung that he's realized his hypnotic trigger is a candle that she blows into her center table often. That's when Miss Kyung reveals her true self to him. She mentions that Do Hyun and Jin-ho gave evidence against her husband and made him murder his daughter. But Jin-ho regretted that. Therefore, he became insane due to his violent tendency. And her husband thought he could get the good out of them, so he gave them a chance. But they ended up losing their own daughter Min. And despite everything, the director did not take revenge and instead drowned the events into memory through hypnotherapy. So the group may live a happy life, even though they committed such evil. But she is not like her husband, adds Miss Kyung. Therefore, she forced Do Hyun to accompany Jin-ho through his whole hypnosis process so he could understand what he'd done. She then informs him that he will be the next one to lose his life. She points to a big drum and asks him to go into it. Do Hyun goes into the drum himself in his hypnotic state, where he sees Seung Min. Later, the police also see the video of Byung and Do Hyun and conclude that they all committed strangely, which means Miss